What is up, everybody? It is elimination basketball time, not only just for the Big Five pod, but for the entire country. I am, of course, your host, Kyle Morello. This is episode number 31 of the Big Five pod, and with me, my co-host, Jake Copestick. Cope, elimination basketball. How we doing?
We're doing great. What a wild weekend of elimination basketball, of non-elimination basketball. Jamal Shed hit a huge buzzer beater against Memphis yesterday. The Tennessee Tech and SEMO game in the OVC championship was wild. Tennessee Tech came 2 inches away from hitting a three to end up winning and going to the tournament, but the guy who shot his foot was on the line. It was a great weekend of hoops. Last night in the Big Sky, the number one seed Eastern Washington lost at the buzzer to number 9 Northern Arizona. Upsets galore. Hofstra, the number one seed in the CAA, just lost tonight in overtime after not making a
Watching
field
that.
goal for almost 10 minutes to end the game. It's March always delivers. It has a 1,000% hit rate. It never misses. It never fails, and that's why it's the best time of the year on the sports calendar, in my opinion. And every single year, it's wild the first couple of days, and we end up having a great tournament. Every single year, I'm like, hey, if this couple of days, this is any indication of what's to come, we're in for a treat, and it's certainly delivering so far. So elimination basketball, like you said, the end of the regular season, as everybody wrapped up yesterday, playing their final regular season games. It's been already a very wild month to begin, and I'm excited for what's in store.
Yeah, I mean, even so, like just the sheer amount of basketball that's going to be on TV starting tomorrow, starting on Tuesday, uh, at 11:30 a.m.
Beautiful.
There's going to be just basketball all day, and it's going to continue like that until Sunday. Usually, games might not always be at 11:30; they might be at noon, but from noon until whenever that day ends, there's going to be basketball on for the next 6 days. So it's beautiful. And then right after that, we got the selection show on Sunday at 6, and then the tournament. It's and obviously you can't forget the first four too. So it's just going to be a beautiful sight to see, and we're here. We're here. This is what we live
Yep.
for. So let's get into it. Some non-elimination basketball, like you mentioned, this weekend. Obviously, we're starting that this coming week, but we're going to get right into it. We had an unfortunate result in the Ivy League on Saturday afternoon. Princeton was down 17 at the half to Penn. They came back to tie it. They went to overtime. They beat the Quakers by 8, 77-69 in the extra period. Jordan Dingle had a great first half, and those numbers started to carry over a little bit to the second half, but he went cold down the stretch. He did end up with 28 points, 9 of 25 from the field. And there just wasn't much scoring after that. Max Martz was the next highest scorer for Penn, 13 points on 5 of 12 from the field. Clark Slackert, who we had been hyping up, he had been playing a lot better. Disappointing game, 7 points on just 3 of 10 from the field. Was a rock fight in this one. Penn shot 38% from the field. Princeton shot 37.5% from the field. Penn was 7 of 22 from 3. Princeton was 9 of 37 from 3, which is insane. Not even a lot of turnovers, 10 for Penn, 9 for Princeton, but it was just a case of Penn being on fire in the first half and Princeton not being able to hit anything. They only scored 25 points in the first half, but they came all the way back and they pulled it out. And credit to them, they're a great team. But Penn, this really stings because they had a chance to clinch a share of the Ivy League tournament, even though they would have been below Yale in the seeding. Even though they didn't know that Yale had won yet, obviously Yale did end up beating Brown. But it's just a shame because they worked this hard to get there. They won 8 straight, 7 in conference play, and they had one really bad half and then an extra 5 minutes of bad basketball, and it cost them.
Yeah, to come in this game on a huge winning streak where you can go into your rival's place. Obviously, we talked about both times when we previewed this game how big of a rivalry this is, how many meetings they've had between each other. This is now Penn 126, Princeton 121, getting ever so closer. But man, this stings, man. This hurts like hell. I mean, they obviously it doesn't matter because Yale won, like you said, and really, regardless of this game's result, if Yale had won, this was going to be the match. But it just sucks that you got to go into it. I mean, they put together a great game plan, pre-switching on cross screens in the post, so that way they didn't get a guard on Tosana Woma. They started with the guard on him. They knew they were going to switch screens, so they already had a big on him. George Smith played a lot of perimeter defense on him. They really didn't need a big body to be all the way out there on Tosan Woman. They just needed somebody who could put their body and their chest in front of the ball. And that's what George Smith has done ever since he stepped on Penn's campus. It's just be a willing defender and be able to stick to guys and slide in front of them on the perimeter. He did a pretty good job of that. When you see that Tosan Woman only put up 15 points, played over 40 minutes in this game, you'll definitely take that because he had 26 in the first meeting. But to collapse the way they did, I mean, they scored 27 points over the last 25 minutes in this game in the second half and an overtime. Scored 42 in the first half. And they got 21 from Jordan Dingle. And then you look at his numbers, 7 and 9 in the first half. He was 2 of 16 in the second half, and he missed his last 10. I mean, just a horrific collapse to blow a share of the Ivy League title, to split the season series 1-1 with Princeton, and to know that going into next week, like, you just blew a huge lead against this team in the games at their place, it's tough. I mean, this one hurts like hell. We were riding high. We thought they were going to run away with this one the way they were playing the first half, and we thought that, hey, Princeton's lost. You know, they're 2-2 in their last 4. Penn's screaming hot on a huge win streak. We thought they'd be able to get it done, and it just feels like they undid like a month's worth of progress in this game. I mean, to see a lead like that evaporate and then lose this game by multiple possessions in overtime, I mean, it really, really stings. Now, I'm still going to stay consistent here, and I'm going to roll with it. I think Penn is going to win 2 games next weekend, but man, this one hurts. It really does. I mean, they had some losses early in the season where I thought they lost a couple games in overtime in the Big Five to St. Joe's and LaSalle, but this isn't the worst loss. I think this is the worst loss of the season. Excuse me. Not exactly the way they played, but just like the result and everything that went into it, the timing of it. That's why I think this is the worst loss they've had this year. And it stings now, having to go into basically it's a 1-game season next week by this exact same team at their place. It hurts. It really hurts like hell. And it felt like a lot of they lost all their momentum in here.
Yeah, it does hurt. And I do agree with you. I do think that it feels like they lost some momentum here, especially for just how well they played in the first half. And then just the collapse like that was insane. But here's the thing. As you alluded to when you were talking, like, Yale winning was going to have them be in this matchup with Princeton regardless. And if they were to hang on and win this game, yes, they would have had more momentum. But regardless, it's a 1-game season. None of these teams in the Ivy League are getting an at-large bid. So I think for Penn, it's the same mindset going into this. It's like, okay, we're going to take this 1 game at a time. Yes, that happened. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe they're glad they got out of the way. And like I mentioned in the last episode, it's okay that they lost this game if they win the next game. So maybe they said, okay, we got that collapse out of the system. Let's focus on what we did right in the first half. And obviously, look at the tape in the second half too and see what went wrong. But it was shot making that went wrong. Jordan Dingle hits one more of those shots, they win the game. You know what I mean? So I don't think, yes, I think it's a big deal, but I don't think it's going to wreck them because I think they realize that they had him and they just need to fix a little bit of things and fine tune some things, and they're going to be in the Ivy League championship if they do that. And I think they can. And we're going to get into that game a little bit later in the week. We're going to be at that game, which is dope. So we're going to have a lot to talk about that. But I don't think it stinks. Definitely. It definitely does stink, but I don't think it's the end of the world for this Penn team. So we'll get back to that a little bit later in the week, but something to keep in mind. All right. This was a surprising result too. Loyola Chicago beating LaSalle 76-73. They were up as many as 13 in this game, the Ramblers. LaSalle came back. Unfortunately, did not complete the comeback, but they did make it close again. Jameer Brookus, 18 points on 8 of 11 from the field. Josh Nickelberry, 17 points and 6 of 9 from the field. They shot 56% from the field and 50% from 3 and still couldn't win this game, which is just tells you how much they didn't play that great early on before they started making a comeback, even though they were shooting well. Loyola, however, shooting 54.5% from the field and 35.7% from 3. So that also contributed to it. Their defense they didn't hold their end of the deal. And rebounding was a big part of that. The Ramblers won rebounding. 29-19. Anytime you lose the rebounding margin by 10, it's usually not going to go well for you. And they each had 13 turnovers, so that negated each other. But they had won 5 straight. This Explorers team, we were getting a little high on them, and then now they've lost 5 straight. It's just a brutal stretch to end the regular season on. And obviously we'll go over their A10 tournament preview in a second. But your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this is another one that's really tough. And you mentioned that they were on a 5-game winning streak. We started to buy into this team a little bit. They were feisty. They were exceeding all expectations that a lot of people had for them this year. But look at their last 15 games. They lost 5 in a row. Then they won 5 in a row. And here they come crashing down to conference play. I use the analogy or term, like crawling to the finish line. I want the team that's screaming hot that runs through the finish line at the end of the year that finishes the year strong. I mean, this team is like crawling on all fours across the finish line here, winning 5 or losing 5, winning 5, losing another 5, and then losing, and then that last one in the regular season on senior day at home comes to the worst team in the league that was 3-14 going into this game. I mean, it's bad. Sheldon Edwards was averaging over 4 points a game this year for Loyola Chicago. He had 25 in this game and was 9 of 14, made 3 of the 6 threes. This is a team in Loyola. We've talked about them a couple times playing St. Joe's. They looked horrible when they had to go to Hagen Arena and play St. Joe's. I believe they turned over 19 times or 20 sometimes in that game. Looked horrible. St. Joe's blew them out. A lot of turnover from last year. Still a very young head coach in Drew Valentine. A lot of new players on this team. They were turning the ball over a ton. And I got to give Loyola credit. They've been feisty. They've been in some games. They took Dayton overtime at their place. They've been playing better. They won at UMass. But if you're gonna beat this team, if you turn them over a ton, the game's over. They just didn't really do that, and they let them shoot a high percentage too. So it's a really really tough result for sure to have to go into the tournament now on a 5-game losing streak, and then the icing on the cake, kind of losing to this team. It just can't happen. And it only grabbed 19 rebounds in the game. I mean, there wasn't many defensive rebounds for Loyola because they made over almost 55% of their shots. But only grab 19 rebounds a 40-minute game, get out rebounded at your own place, and then have the worst team in the conference come into your place and shoot like that. Like it's really, really disheartening, man. But this team's just been so up and down. They're almost like Temple. The peaks are great, the valleys are extremely low, but a very, very tough result. It had a couple good performances. Josh Nickelberry on his senior day, 17. 5 of 8 from 3. You mentioned Jameer Brickus off the bench had a good game. But just unfortunately, the Drame brothers, too, on their senior night, too, they only combined for 11 points. They only take 8 shots between the two of them. Played a lot of minutes. So, tough result. Hopefully, they can win a game or two in the A10 tournament, a game that we'll talk about coming up here. But, yeah, really, really tough. But, unfortunately, this was kind of the rock bottom of the losing streak. It's senior day, like I said. You're at your own place. You have the worst team in the league coming in. And they run it up on you and have a good shooting. Really, really tough result again from LaSalle. Hopefully they can take it off, but not. I mean, this team was 500 not too long ago,
A few
and
weeks ago.
here we are. They end 13 and 18, 7 and 11 in the conference. So really, really tough loss to take because I don't think there's anybody out there that thought that they would lose this game. So to see them take the loss, it's real tough.
It's disheartening. I think it's a really good word for it. It's just, you mentioned the last 15 games, lost 5, won 5, lost 5. It's like a ping pong ball going back and forth. It's not what you want. You want consistency. And, Fran Duffy's trying to build that. And credit to him. I think they, at one point, were definitely outperforming people's expectations. But this is just a sad way to end the season. Regular season, that is. They still have at least one more game to play. But we'll see what happens with that one in a little bit. All right. Saturday night, UConn, Villanova at the Wells Fargo Center. Didn't exactly go as planned. Obviously, Villanova had won 6 of 7. They were riding high, but UConn came in and beat them 71-59. And this is, I think, more about UConn than Villanova, but we're going to talk about that in a second. Justin Moore, 17 points on 7 of 15 from the field. Cam Whitmore, 14 points on 6 of 11 from the field, led the Wildcats in scoring there, the both of them. They only shot 36% from the field, 25% from three, so not a great game from them. 12 of 18 from the line, too, which isn't even that great for a Villanova team that we know can shoot the heck out of the ball at the free throw line. They were out rebounded 38-31, and they each had 12 turnovers. But like I said, this UConn team, I know they were really, really hot to start the season. They went on a bad stretch in the middle. They've pretty quietly, not pretty quietly, but relatively quietly, been creeping back up into the national championship conversation, I think. And I think this is a team that can compete with some of the best in the country. So, I don't hold it completely against Villanova for losing this game, but if they wanted a chance to move up a line, maybe in the at-large conversation, or to even still be in the at-large conversation, this was the game that they needed to win. And unfortunately, they did not.
Yeah, this was the biggest one they had on their schedule. Now it was great to see them win at the Cintas Center against Xavier, and then really beat down Creighton at the Wells Fargo Center. But this is the one, like you said, that they had to have, and would be a huge boost if you could beat a top 15, let alone 25 team at your own place, and end the season on a nice streak where I believe they would have won 8 of 9. That was huge. But you mentioned this UConn team; they were as high as number 2. The last when Villanova had to go play them at the XL Center, I believe it was there, not Gamble Pavilion. They were ranked number 2. I believe they started out 14-0 or something. That's crazy. And then you mentioned they took their lumps. They went on a 2-6 streak in conference. They lost at home St. John's, who's not been good this year. And ever since then, ever since that 2-6 stretch, Kyle, they've won 8 of 9. They started out screaming hot. They had a great non-conference, beating some big time teams. Took their lumps. They faced their adversity, and now they're playing their best basketball. It's a very, very scary team. And it's a game where the bench for them didn't even do much. Donovan Clingan didn't even score in this game. And Gordon Hawkins had another great game. Andre Jackson and Alex Caravan had great games. Andre Jackson was flying around everywhere. 10 points, had a couple 3-pointers all year, especially against Nova. The 2 games they played, they backed off him and dared him to shoot. He made him pay. He knocked a couple down, 7 boards, 5 assists, some steals, some blocks. He was terrific. He was. And this team is playing their best basketball. It wasn't really about Villanova. They kept this game close for probably 15 minutes. Last couple minutes of the second half, or last couple minutes of the first half, and then the entire second half, UConn was just a better team. That's what it came down to. And Justin Moore had a pretty solid game, Whitmore as well, but Eric Dixon only had 7 points. Brandon Slater didn't make a field goal in this game. Caleb Daniels has been in a funk lately and just hasn't been able to score, and it's been killing him. And if you're gonna have games where your upperclassmen and your 5th years aren't even gonna contribute that much, Daniels 3 of 11, Slater 0-4, combined for 10 points, you're not gonna win here because this isn't really a team that's got that's gonna get a lift from the bench. So I still think they can make a little bit of noise, maybe win a game or 2 in the tournament here. If they had beaten UConn, I would have said, hey, you have me all in on Villanova making a run. I don't think I'm there yet. I think they can maybe win a game or 2, but you don't have me on a total bid stealer just yet, because good for them that Nova doesn't have to theoretically wouldn't have to see UConn potentially until the Big East championship game. But this is a damn good team that's playing their best basketball right now. They're screaming hot, running through the finish line, like I always say. And if you got to go to the Garden, now if Nova's played very well at the Garden, 28-3 there since 2014. But if you play this team there, I don't know if you'll be able to get it done. But UConn's just a better team here. That's what it came down to, especially in the second half. They showed you why they're a team that can make the Final Four and potentially make some noise for it. So Nova needed to have it. I think a lot of people like the idea of them beating this team, going on a hot streak, maybe run the table, but this UConn team is just really good. That's what it comes down to. They'll be right there for a Final Four berth this year.
Yeah, they're a great team. I mean, it's very, very hard to beat great teams, and this UConn team fits the bill. So it'll be interesting. Like you mentioned, though, they wouldn't see them until the Big East final if they do make it there. So they have some teams on their schedule that they have beaten, potentially to see them in the Big East tournament. So we will see what happens. And that will start with Georgetown, and we'll get to that in a second. I do want to go over this game real quick. We don't have to spend a ton of time on it because we're going to talk about this Temple Owls team again later in the week. They don't play until Friday. But tough one at Tulane. They lost 83-82. Very, very close game. Damian Dunn, 21 points on 7 of 16. Jamil Reynolds, 17 on 7 of 10. shot almost 44% from the field, but 8 of 29 from three, which is their downfall, and also their defense was their downfall. Tulane shot almost 51% from the field and 56.3% from three, despite the fact that they out turnover Temple. Tulane at 12, Temple at 10. So tough one. I mean, this game didn't matter as much. I actually shouldn't say that, because if they beat Tulane, they would have gotten the 3 seed and they would have been able to theoretically avoid Houston until the American finals. But as we mentioned before in the last couple episodes, Temple hasn't won a game in the American tournament in some time. So not sure they would have even gotten there regardless, but now they play Cincinnati as the 5 seed and Cincinnati's the 4 seed. And that'll come up on Friday, like we said. But just thoughts on this game real quick before we move on to what's next.
So I was encouraged a little bit because they were down as many as 16 in this game, and they came back and were leading this game by a point with 30 seconds. I mean, they did not lead. They got the lead with under a minute left, with about 33 seconds left. That was their first lead since the 14:29-minute mark, first half. They clawed all the way back on the road last game of the year with a potential double bye on the line, and they had a chance to win. I thought it was a questionable foul on Nick Jourdain at the end that gave Tulane 2 free throw opportunities that they were able to convert on, and then they were able to come down. And then Zion James just made a really, really good block on Jaleel White in the final seconds to close this one out. It sucks they couldn't get the win because it feels like, they finished 10-8 in conference play. It's been a little bit rocky for them, but it's like, I'm just glad that they competed, and it even with the season that they've had, the ups and downs, Caleb Paddle being in and out. Now he's not with the team anymore. They still had a chance to get a top 3 seed in the conference and get a double bye. It's unfortunate it didn't work out, but I was happy with the way they competed, especially on the road against a team that they had on the ropes. They were beating this Tulane team at home last time they played them at the Lee Accord Center, and then they just squandered the lead, and Tulane ran away within the last couple minutes. But yeah, the shooting maybe wasn't great. 3-point definitely left some money on the table with the free throw line going 18-25. But I was happy with the way this team competed to claw back from a huge deficit on the road with the game that meant a lot. Unfortunate they can't get it done, but they're gonna have a 4-5 game. So they don't have to kind of slide into the later half and play more games. But happy with the effort. Just a shame it couldn't get. They didn't get the result that they wanted because they really did battle back here against the good team.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost kind of shades of last year a little bit, where they, no Caleb, and obviously they went a lot of last year without Caleb, but didn't have him, and they just kept clawing back in these games, and they gutted out some great wins last year, and there's been a couple wins like that this year too, obviously, but I think quietly they've been playing not bad basketball against quality teams. Obviously, they beat UCF on the buzzer beater. They went to overtime against Cincinnati. The 1-point game in this one, that was the last 3 games that they've played, and they're all against some of the better teams in this conference. I'm not saying that they won't win a game. I know it's going to be very hard against a pretty quality Cincinnati team, but they haven't been playing bad basketball, which is, I guess, something to hang your hat on, considering that they lost their leading scorer for, I guess, indefinitely, late in the season. So it'll be interesting to see, but we're going to talk about that more on this weekend's episode. So make sure you tune in for that. And Copestick, we've officially entered phase 3 of the NCAA season.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into it. Conference tournament play in the Big 5. Here we go. First one. The Loyola Chicago Ramblers taking on the St. Joseph's Hawks Tuesday at 2:00. This is the 10 versus 15 game in the A10 tournament. Couple facts here. The 5th time that St. Joseph's played in the first round of the A10 tournament, which is not a lot. They obviously, they used to have a lot of success. They haven't as much recently. They played in this round last year where they played LaSalle and they lost to LaSalle, but only the 5th time that they played in the A10 tournament. They swept the Ramblers this season, as you may remember. And this Ramblers team, like you said, give them credit. They have been playing a little bit better. They're still not a good team, though. 257th in Ken Palm. A couple things they do well: 59th in effective field goal percentage, 23rd in 2-point percentage. And then some things they don't do so great. They're 350th in turnover percentage still. They are 303rd in offensive rebound percentage, and they are 278th in free throw percentage. Now, you mentioned a little bit earlier how they came to Hagen Arena and St. Joe's blew them out of the water. They had a pretty comfortable win in Chicago against them. So this is a St. Joe's team that's had the Ramblers number, and I don't think it's going to be any different this time. I know St. Joe's hasn't been playing great lately, but I do think they will come up with a win here. They didn't play this weekend, so they had some time to rest. Loyola did play this weekend, obviously against LaSalle. So I'm going to go with the Hawks here. I think I'm confident that they're going to be able to pull out a victory and move on to the next round of the A10 tournament. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. Now, the one thing that we've been monitoring the last couple of games for St. Joe's is doesn't sound like Eduque Obina is going to play in this, which is big because if Charles Coleman's not going to play big minutes in this game, and you're relying on the freshman and Richie Fleming, and then hopefully that means that Oscar Klotchik, who he dressed for the Richmond game, but he didn't play. Hopefully that means that he had enough time to get himself right and he can play in this. So that's true. If we can get an update out to you, we definitely will. But that's another thing that we've been watching the last couple of games is the health of starting big guys for this Hawk team in Oscar Klotchik and Eduque Obina. However, despite that, I do think they will pick up a win here, and they'll beat the last seeded, the bottom seeded Ramblers, and they'll get a win here. The first matchup blew them out, ton of turnovers, ton of offense. I mean, the game was never really close. Second game, got to give them credit at Gentile Arena in Chicago. Was pretty close. St. Joe's pulled away at the end. Some good defensive plays, some timely buckets from Lynn Greer and Eric Reynolds pulled the win out for him. But I'll take them here in Brooklyn. Which I was going up there and didn't have responsibilities and work and stuff. I could go up there, watch
You and
basketball
me
all day.
both.
But I think the Hawks here just think they're a better team. If they can get a good shooting day out of Eric Reynolds, Cameron Brown, and Lynn Greer, if their big three can have a good game, they can definitely compete with a lot of teams in this conference for sure. But they're just a better team than Loyola. Now we'll try and pass along health updates when we can, because I do think that's key. If you're going to be missing both of your bigs, I do think that's a problem, and that Loyola could maybe squeak one out here. As we mentioned, they've been playing better, but I'll take the Hawks here to beat the Ramblers and buy themselves another game at the Barclays Center.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is definitely a team that they can beat, and they have beaten, and I think they will move on. Which I don't want to get too far ahead, and if they do happen to win, we will go over maybe not in an episode, but some form of content, likely just a short form video on social media. But their potential next game, which if they do win, they would be facing George Washington. That would be at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, as I'm reading the bracket right now. Which is also a game I think they could win because they've had some success against George Washington. I know they had that close loss against them, and then they won later, but which could set up a pretty interesting little run for the St. Joe's team here if they do end up.
Like it's a totally
It is a wide open league.
It's totally wide open.
I mean, they're the 10 seed, and we're talking about them potentially moving on to the quarterfinals. If they do, obviously, I don't want to get too ahead. They do have to win 2 games for that to happen, but they are 2 winnable games.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. But let's take it.
Take it one game at a time. It's March.
We'll
You
take
got to
one
take it
game
one
at
game
a
at a
time.
time.
It would be awesome if they went on a run, but we'll take it.
Yeah.
Take it one game at a time.
Exactly. All right. 1 seed lower in the A10 tournament is the Salle Explorers team. They will be taking on the number 14 seed of Rhode Island, and that is Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. This has been a very interesting matchup this season. Rhode Island and LaSalle are 1-1 against each other. Both games decided by 2 points exactly. So this is a very, very close matchup. A little bit about this Rhode Island team. We haven't seen them a little bit, I don't think, but 243rd in Ken Palm, 303rd in offense, which is not great at all. Their strong suit's definitely their defense. But some stats here to go along with that. 357th in the country in effective field goal percentage. Again, out of 363, so that is very, very low. They are 318th in turnover percentage. Some things they do well, though. 73rd in offensive rebound percentage, 78th in opponent three-point percentage, 50th in free throw attempts for field goal attempts, and 56th in free throw percentage. So, this is not going to be the easiest matchup in the world for LaSalle. Obviously, Rhode Island's offense isn't great. Their defense isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. And these two teams have played each other extremely close this year when they did play each other. Obviously, 2-point margin in both victories, in both games. So I I hate to do it. I don't want to end the Explorers season. I don't want to end Coach Dunphy's season, but the way that they've been rolling lately in the negative direction that is, obviously, and the fact that these matchups were just so close early on, I think I'm gonna go with Rhode Island in this one. I think their defense will, it's not like the best defense in the world, but it is their strong suit because their offense is just that bad. And I don't see I don't see how they can bounce back from a 5-game losing streak this late in the season and beat this Rhode Island team. So I'm going to go with Rhode Island here, unfortunately. What do you think?
So it's kind of hard to pick a side. I'm going to go with LaSalle, but they've lost 5 in a row. And Rhode Island's 1-8 in their last 9 games. These are two teams that are
It's
not
very
heading
true.
in a good direction at all. It's not been good for them. One thing I want to point out, though. So obviously, we've talked about 2 close games between these two teams. Really come down the last couple possessions. Now, when LaSalle had to go up to Rhode Island, they had to go up to Kingston to play. They hardly scored down the stretch. I mean, they went on a very, very bad offensive streak there. I believe they went 2 for 16 and they scored maybe 7 points over the last couple minutes. It was not good. They just kind of sputtered it at the end of the game where I thought they could have won. But having said that, I think what the difference could be in this game. So about a month ago, roughly, let's say maybe 3 weeks, middle February, Brayon Freeman was dismissed from this Rhode Island team. He transferred in from GW in conference, but he was dismissed from this team. And he's second on this team in scoring with just over 14 points a game. So now you take out an offense that's already really bad. They can't shoot well. They rely a lot on getting to the free throw line and driving and attacking closeouts and getting to the basket for a lot of their offense. This is a game where LaSalle is not going to have to. And I said the same thing when they played St. Joe's at Hagen Arena when Rhode Island went there. You don't have to jump and lunge out at shooters. Make sure you close out with discipline. You stay in front of these guys. You don't even really have to run them off the line if they're not hitting. With that being said, you also take out the second leading scorer, like I said, in Brayon Freeman. He's been dismissed for quite some time now. They've not been on a good streak without him. I'm going to take the Explorers here. I think offense is going to be hard to come by in this game. But give me a close, low-scoring game. I think LaSalle will pull this out. Brayon Freeman being the difference. The first meeting at Tom Gold Arena, he had 18 points. He had 12 in the second meeting at the Ryan Center. I think that's where your difference is here. A team that's already got a bunch of trouble scoring the ball is now without their second leading scorer. Not really liking that. Not a fan of that at all. I don't think that's good for this. He's also one of their better 3-point shooters on a team that's just not good at that, like we've mentioned. So I'll take LaSalle here. I think Brayon Freeman ends up being the difference in this game.
That's a fair point. That is a fair point. I think I still might roll with Rhode Island because I just don't know how great the matchup is, regardless. But two not good teams, just as the bottom line there.
They're both on a downward spiral.
And it wouldn't get any easier whoever wins this game because they have to go on to face Duquesne. And that would be 7:30 on Wednesday. Yeah. I don't love either of these teams, and then if whoever wins is gonna have to face Duquesne, and I like that Duquesne team.
Hold on, can I just interrupt for a second?
Yes.
Speaking of that, now let me preface this, which I have to. Please bet responsibly. Kyle, I understand there's a pick you like.
There's a pick.
I think there's a pick you like. I'll let you take it away, but I understand there's a pick you like in the future you like for the A10 tournament.
There is a pick I like, and I would love to take it away. I will preface this by saying the line has since moved a little bit, but Sunday night I was scavenging the conference tournament future markets as one responsible gambler does, and I came across Duquesne at 17-1 on FanDuel. And I said, let me check out what these lines are elsewhere, because this Duquesne team, obviously they're not Dayton and VCU in this conference, but they've made some noise. We've talked about them potentially being able to make a run in this tournament all conference seasons. So I was like, I think it's a pretty good number. So I went over to DK DraftKings, and I believe they were plus 750. Or I think at most they were like plus 900, which is maybe what they moved to today there, and immediately bet them at 17-1 to to win the conference tournament on FanDuel. I just listen from a value standpoint alone. I think it's a great value. I don't think that they should have that high of a number. And I was reading, I don't know who the exact author was on Action Network, but I was reading an Action Network article that was previewing the Atlantic 10 conference tournament. And they said that Duquesne was, I don't know if I would give a dark horse, but the best number value in this tournament. But we talked about this Duquesne team. I mean, they have a pretty good offense. They've been hanging with teams in this conference all year. This conference is wide open, as we talk about. No team scares me really other than VCU and Dayton. So as long as they get to those matchups in the semifinal, like I think they can match up decently against Fordham. Um, I think they could beat St. Louis, even though they're not going to play them. But like, you know what I mean? I thought it was a great value, and I picked that. Now they've moved down to 1,500 plus 1,500 on FanDuel, so it's lost a little bit of its luster, but I still think compared to DK, it's a great value. So if you're looking to bet on some conference tournaments by the time you're seeing this, try to see what that Duquesne number at FanDuel is, because compared to where it is on DraftKings, I definitely think it's a great value. So Duquesne, I have it plus 1,700, but if you can still get it at plus 15, I think that's not a bad deal. Maybe just knock down your number a little bit of what you're betting. And of course, bet responsibly. So yes, thank you for including that. I tweeted that yesterday because I just thought it was a great value. So definitely want to make sure you maybe add that to your conference tournament portfolio. All right, moving on. Last conference game of the early week slate here. We got Georgetown taking on Villanova. Villanova is the 6th seed in the Big East tournament. That would be Wednesday at 8:30, so a little bit of a later game. But listen, we talk about games that these teams should win. We talked about St. Joe should beat Loyola. We didn't say that for this past matchup for Rhode Island and Salle, but Villanova should beat Georgetown. This is not a good Georgetown team. They swept them, though the one game was a lot closer than you would have liked to have seen, but it's not a good team. 219th in KenPom. They are 320th in effective field goal percentage and 314th in defensive effective field goal percentage. 316th in 3-point percentage and 357th in opponent 3-point percentage. So 6th to last in the country. 290th in 2-point percentage. One thing they do well is they are 23rd in defensive free throw attempts per field goal attempts. And I did find this very interesting nugget on their KenPom page. They are first in the country in non-steal turnover percentage on offense, despite being 309th in defensive turnover percentage. So very interesting that they're so bad in one category. Or I'm sorry, that was offensive turnover percentage, but it's interesting that they're so bad in the turnover department, but I guess they don't come on steals very often. So that's interesting. But like I said, this is not a team that they should lose to. And I don't think they are. And I'm going to take the Wildcats. I'm going to say they're going to keep on rolling, even though they did have a little bit of a bump in the road against UConn. But I think this game, hopefully, could be more of a tune-up for their next game rather than being a sweat, in my opinion.
No, I agree with you 100%. This is a team that they should definitely beat. I'll throw out again, since 2014, Villanova Wildcats are 28-3 playing at Madison Square Garden. If you know anything about the Garden, the New York teams that play there are not very good. Maybe they are now, as of late, have not been very good. Some are saying that they're the best team to grace Madison Square Garden since 2014, which they might be right. They've won 2 championships. I haven't seen the other teams win one. Just throwing it out there.
I think that's a Knicks dig, and I want you to put some respect on my New York Knicks right now. That's all I'm going to say.
I will, because I saw they won last night, but I have ever since it's March. I haven't watched the NBA in a while.
No, I agree.
Once March Madness is over, it's great. Rolls right into the NBA playoffs. I watch the good stuff. But yeah, some are saying Villanova since 2014, the best team to ever play in Madison.
It's probably accurate.
They've been very good there. Big East championships, 2 national championships, 3 Final Fours. But regardless, I'll get on to the game here. Yeah, Georgetown, they're a mess. Nova wins this game. They beat them twice this year. Now, the second one to Finn was closer, but Justin Moore was not in both of them. He did not play in both of those games. He's been playing a lot better. I think that's what the difference is here. They start to pull away. I think they'll win this game easy. Not a great team in Georgetown that's really good in a specific – well, they are good in a specific area, as you said, but overall, this isn't really a great, overwhelming team on either side of the ball that does a lot of things well. They're unfortunately, they're just not very good. Now, what I will throw out here, The last time Georgetown beat Villanova, 2021 Big East tournament, the kind of weird COVID year. Colin Gillespie gets hurt right as the season ends. Georgetown plays Marquette. They beat them. They play Villanova. They beat them. They run the table. They win the Big East tournament, and then they get slacked by Colorado in the first round with McKinley Wright, the fourth, and those guys. So, hey, the last time these two teams played in the Big East tournament, it was Georgetown that beat Villanova. I have to throw that out there just from a factual standpoint. But I think Nova wins this game. Healthy Justin Moore is the difference here. I think this is also a tune-up game for a Caleb Daniels or a Brandon Slater to kind of get right. Caleb Daniels he's been rough the last couple of games, hasn't looked like himself and hasn't been hitting shots. So I think this is a tune-up for those guys as well. And unfortunately, I think this loss for Georgetown ends the Patrick Ewing era. He's done at Georgetown after this year. It hasn't been pretty. Honestly, he kind of got bailed with the 2021 Big East tournament run. If that doesn't happen, maybe this happens last year. But I just feel bad. I think this game's going to end the Patrick Ewing era. He, maybe besides Iverson, is probably Georgetown's most famous alumni, unless I'm forgetting anybody, and it's just me being uncultured.
Lonzo Mourning.
Knowing nothing about sports.
Lonzo Mourning, Dikembe Mutombo. That's really it.
Apparently they rigged the draft for this guy, and he was the number one pick. And
no, I mean, it's Ewing and Iverson are the two best.
Yeah, I think there's an argument to be made. He's the school's most famous alumni. They're not just going to fire him. I think it's going to be like a mutually agreed to part ways type thing. But unfortunately, like I said, Nova rolls here. This is a team that they should beat. They did beat without Justin Moore being in those games. And unfortunately, the Patrick Ewing era comes to an end in our nation's capital after this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised it didn't come sooner than that, to be honest with you. Like you mentioned, this Georgetown team, other than that crazy run in 2021, they just have not been good in at least a decade since the Otto Porter team that lost to Dunk City, Florida Gulf Coast. Besides that, they've just been either mids or they've been bad. And it's a shame because they were, historically, they're a great team. I mean,
this is like a top 25 program historically.
In history,
this is one of the top 25 best brands in the sport.
I mean, you see what's happening to the two original Big East powers, Georgetown and Syracuse. It just completely going down the tank.
Even look at what's happening at Louisville.
Yep.
They're crashing.
And it stinks because Johnny Bryant was a former Knicks assistant, and I thought he was going to do great things there, and he is not.
He's on with Kenny Payne.
Yeah, Johnny Bryant's still there. Kenny Payne's the one who took the job. That's my fault. I mixed them up. Okay. But yes, Kenny Payne's not done well there, and it's sad. It's sad to see some of these traditional powers just be awful right now. Especially when you talk about Boeheim still being at Syracuse. Like, that whole thing is just so weird. I think he should retire. He's not. He's stubborn. I know that our friend Anthony DeBundo agrees with us. He's a Syracuse alum.
He's very rude to student reporters, by the way.
He is very rude to
I don't think anybody likes, but he's the stuff he says to like the kids that are just probably doing stuff for credit, just to get the names and the bylines and do their thing while they're at school. Like, he's nasty to student reporters, man. And
I'm pretty sure DeBundo has been on the side of that, of the nastiness.
I think multiple times too.
I think so. So it is unfortunate, but getting back to this one, I mean, Villanova should win this game, and maybe it'll be a good thing for Georgetown that they do, because maybe it'll end the Patrick Ewing era, and hopefully they can start to turn around their program a little bit. Now, if Villanova does win this game, they would move on to take on Creighton at 9:30 on Thursday. It's a late game. A team they just beat, but a scary team nonetheless. Ryan Kalkbrenner was just named the Big East Defensive Player of the Year. Very scary team, but that will be an interesting one. Obviously, they do have to get past Georgetown, and I think they will. But listen, if there's one team, obviously, Penn only has to play 2 games if they do play the maximum of 2 games. But this is the one team, I think, of the Big Five that can make a complete run through their conference tournament and have to win 4 games. So it'll be interesting to see if they can pull that off. But it starts with this Georgetown game, so hopefully they can do that. So that's pretty much all we got. Anything you want to say before we sign off here?
Best time of the year. I can't wait to sit on the couch tomorrow. I'm going to watch St. Joe's. I'm going to watch the Salle. I'm going to be able to sit at 11:30. I'm going to sit before noon. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to drink some coffee. And I'm going to be able to watch the A10 tournament. I think Richmond and UMass playing tomorrow. Yep. So it's best time of the year. wall to wall, wire to wire, whatever reference you want to use. There's basketball on all day. I'm gonna get off when we get off tonight. I'm gonna go down and watch the West Coast Conference tournament. So best time of the year. I'm in my glory. I'm living the dream right now. Go watch some basketball. Bet responsibly if you're gonna do it. Let's have ourselves a month, Kyle. What do you say?
I'd say it's perfect. Let's have ourselves a month. Let's watch a lot of college basketball, like you said, bet responsibly. Um, Listen, just enjoy this. This is a very, very special time of year. This doesn't happen in any other sport. I mean, obviously, college football 1 day a week, they have this for, 14, 15, 16 weeks, whatever it is. But to have a stretch like this over a month where there's basketball on all day, every day for the better part of 2 weeks, if you want to talk about conference tournament in the first weekend of or first 4 days of the NCAA tournament, it's beautiful. There's nothing like it. It's insanity. It's madness, literally. So just enjoy it, guys. Have fun. Be safe. But just this is the best time of year, like we've said. So that's all we got. Thank you so much for tuning in as always, especially down the stretch run here of this season. Make sure you like and subscribe on our YouTube. Make sure you follow our social media channels on Instagram and Twitter at Big Five Pod. And make sure you listen to our audio only versions on Spotify and Music. And make sure you just check us out because we got a lot of content coming up, throughout this postseason. We're going to stick with it in the offseason, of course, too. But best time of year, like we said. So that being said, we will see you later in the week.